Jeremy, thank you so much for having me today. I had the opportunity to look through a lot of your work, and I don't know how to classify you. What type of artist do you consider yourself?
That's not an easy answer either. I just tell people I do art, so I mostly draw, and I like to draw anything you can. I love animals and nature and plants, and then I usually, the ones that don't make it into a frame get chopped up and recombobulated into some other piece in these collages and stuff. And so I've been drawing since I physically could, I think, just scribbles, but probably high school took a real interest in doing it in classes, and then in college I was kind of bouncing between majors until I kind of just thought, well, try this out. This seems to be what I like to do, so just see if it works, and it kind of kept going ever since.
When you were a kid, before high school, were you good at drawing? Did you feel like it came naturally to you?
I was like the drawing kid, like, there'd be somebody always drawing in class, and I was one of them, and so it'd always be like Pokemon and like anime stuff, and then anything like little boys like guns and tanks and stuff, and anything blowing things up, stuff like that.
Right. So in college, you finally kind of settle on this path. What did you study? Was it drawing?
So my focus was sculpture, mainly ceramic sculpture. It was like these coil belt, like abstract architecture type things. But I did a little bit of everything, and then after graduating, there wasn't really access to a kiln or like facilities for that. So kind of started doing more things that you could do at home, things you could do in a little studio, and a lot more painting and drawing came out of that.
Where does your inspiration come from? Like, I look at your ceramic work, and especially I think some of your earlier drawings, and I have no idea where that inspiration comes from.
So for like the sculptures, it was kind of this juxtaposition of, you have like the architecture where it's inspired by cathedrals and certain types of buildings and certain types of structures, and then it combines that with like a structure an animal would build for a purpose, for like a hive or for like to live in. And so it kind of would combine like things that an ant or a termite would build, or like an underwater shell would form, and the way it would form kind of with the way a human would build a cathedral. So it's kind of comparing the two in that process.
That's wild. So how do you decide to marry those two things? What gives you the idea to look at man-made architecture and these dwellings of animals and put them together?
So I decided at the start that the theme was going to be homes, and you make one, you don't know what it is, you put it aside. You make one, you don't know what it is, you put it aside. And somewhere a theme emerges where you're like, we build this, they build that, we build this, they build that. And so you're looking for inspiration from anything that anyone could live in, and then things that people build for others. And like kind of the idea of like a sacred dwelling was really interesting, because it's a very special place, and it's hard to say what makes it sacred. And so it was kind of interesting to think whether things that other things built are sacred to them, who knows. And so it kind of just throws it all in the pot and just sees because as you go, I was just coil building, so you're just layer by layer by layer by layer, and you're just kind of letting it take form as it goes. And it's not a lot of guiding the process, it's just kind of letting it talk to you as you go.
So how much is based on research? Are you looking at these sort of structures that ants and termites build and getting a feel for that?
There's so many kinds. Like there's these they're called, I think it's a cathedral termite mound, where they like have these spires and structures that look like something a person would build, but it's a lot more lumpy. But like they're really beautiful, and like there's so many kinds that like an animal would build. But then like Gaudí was the biggest inspiration on the architecture side, because he was seeking to kind of marry organic nature and the way that things occur in nature with architecture. So it was kind of the same idea, just kind of in a complete different field.
Let's talk some more about your drawing. Where does your inspiration come for your drawings? Because I feel like you make distinct statements.
I take a lot of inspiration from like medieval art and Japanese art, particularly like ink painting and like woodblock prints. So that's kind of what I look at. Usually in the daytime, I'll draw more like happy outdoorsy things and like nature and plants and birds and stuff. And those tend to be more focused on like what it would naturalistically look like, but kind of trying to make it more brightly colored and more exciting to look at. And then at night, it'd be more like things that are more interesting or sacred or spiritual.
What is it like to start a piece? Do you know how it's going to end, or?
Oh, never.
Really?
No, it's just kind of winging it every time. It's just as hard to start like every time. You're just like, well, it worked last time, so we'll just try it again and see what happens.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
How has your work changed from when you were in high school and kind of really started taking an interest to now?
In high school, it was not very good. And like, I think there's a big change in from high school to college in like enjoying art that other people make. Because I think at the time in high school, I was really focused on what I was making and that I was very good at it and very like, I'm very good at drawing. So it's all like, I can draw that thing over there to make it look like that, and I can do a really good job at it. And even then, it wasn't that great. It just, I thought I was better than some people around me, so I thought it was amazing, and everybody needed to hear what I had to say about it. But then in college, you kind of see there's a million other ways of doing it, and there have been a million ways of doing it that you don't understand, and just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you're smarter than that or that you don't need to know that. So it kind of, there was a big boost in interest in like a million ways you could do it and a million ways that have been done before, I guess.
Did that change your aesthetic?
Oh, aggressively, because it was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna try everything. And so there was a million different ways, and you just kind of copy people. You copy people from books, you copy your professors, you copy your classmates, until finally something kind of is you out of all those, and that kind of follow that.
So what is you? How do you describe your aesthetic?
I like bright colors, I like primary colors, I like symmetry, geometry. I love plants and nature, but like I think I have a really strong passion for line work. Like I think that's why I really like Japanese work, because there's a lot of the ink brush work that is expressive with very simple lines, but they're very clear cut, and when they're put down, that's it. And that's just, you can see the amount of practice with just a very small suggestion. So to me, that's like very interesting. But for me and my style, it's really hard to say.
Do you think it's hard to say because it changes, or just because it's hard to boil it down?
Yes, both, I think. Because like it's always different, and as soon as you kind of, it's hard with art because it's very like, it's expressive and it's not as cut and dry. It's more like, I feel like it's kind of this with a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and so it's very hard to articulate what is going on.
You mentioned your love of symmetry and geometry. Is that where the execution of the kind of collage started? Because that, I mean, those pieces are just so beautiful.
Thank you.
So when did you start kind of dabbling?
That's pretty new, and I used to be kind of against geometry and symmetry because it's hard. And it doesn't look like it's hard. Like whenever you look at it, you're like, oh, they measured it with a ruler, that's fine. But like getting it, it's one of those things where there's right and wrong answers. And that's really hard for artists, because if you're wrong, you have to erase everything, and it's a pain to go back and redo it. And so it's like, well, I'm just not gonna bother with that. But once I started, it was really exciting to kind of get everything to fit just right and to fit in a space. So I started doing, like, I guess they're mandalas, where it's within a circle and you're kind of orienting yourself in that circle and kind of like figuring out like all the lines within it. And that was a lot of fun. And some of them don't turn out perfectly and they get chopped up and put into collages and stuff. So it kind of makes its way into them eventually. There's like there's just a big pile of them, and you just kind of, oh, that'll go in, that looks good there. No, not that one. And you just cobble it together that way.
Do you feel like art is your greatest passion?
I think so, yeah. I'm trying to have other ones so I can kind of have a more well-rounded way of living, because like there's been times when it's just like art, sleep, work, and it's a little boring, honestly, because you become boring because you don't do anything or have fun. And so I'm trying to just branch out a little bit, I guess.
Well, I think we, the community, benefits from you being, in your words, kind of boring, because your work is just beautiful. So thank you for all that you do, and thanks for sitting down with me today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
For more information, visit jeremystroop.com.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by